Thank you very much, Mr. Montut. A pleasant good morning to all our viewers and listeners, those in the diaspora and those who are following us locally. As you heard from my colleague, Senator Dominic Fede, you would realize that the performance of this present government has been very dismal. And I will summarize some of the points made by Senator Fede. Nous tous savons en Saint Lucia that c'est tourisme nous ka dépend à sous plus pour mener l'argent en tout en pays. Si nous pas ni tourism industry then en chay l'argent pas kay en tout en pays. We need what we call foreign exchange. Ça mean c'est pas l'argent qui ka sort Saint Lucia, mais l'argent qui ka sort l'autre pays et vini ici. And our mainstay is tourism. Mais content from Monsieur Dominique, ek mwen vlo changer. Les partisans flambeaux te en gouvernement en 80s la 90s pour venir 1997 and about 1995 nous est that men l'argent pays a te kantou fruit fig tous les semaines combien 1000 boîtes fig nous te kavoué l'Angleterre tous les semaines combien millions de dollars te ka entoué en pays ou changer ça qui veut banana industry ou changer manière couper pas couper ou changer manière yo essayer brûler femme shade fig farmer yo détruit pièce fig yo fait toute qualité bail pour croiser industrie qui te ka mener économie pays ça devant Labour Party vini en gouvernement because yo servi moun qui tan banana en bail fig la pour détruire industrie fig la et ça qui rive nous gade market la jodi en bas Labour Party yo fini choué market fig à présent nous pas vrai yon boîte fig l'Angleterre encore et ça nous ka dépend à sou c'est tourisme et monsieur Dominique maintenant rapport ban nous pas un rapport of psychiatry rapport from ministre tourism même qui ka dit nous qui ça qui ka yve industry tourism now c'est deux manières touristes quand tu es en Saint Lucia touristes quand tu es Saint Lucia à bon bâtiment eh bien assoupli regardez combien l'année nous ka essayé bâti un airport terminal 9 en Vieux-Fort Diwan temps nous ka parler about bâti un terminal qui ça qui a fait Saint-Vincent commence un airport yo ha bâti un whole airport et un whole terminal nous poko sa bâti un terminal en Saint Lucia parce que chaque les bavina gouvernement yo ka double travail là qui a commencé à sous airport là en garder ça qu'a fait Dominique et moi vle n'importe moun qui ni a camarade Dominique just point faire ces moun nan point déporté of travail qui ka fait à sous airport neuf la Dominique in fact a moun rapporté ban il dit moi projet Saint Dominique plus gros passant projet l'Amérique la ni combien la ni pas 100 truck qui ka travail équipement nous poko ouais Saint Lucia en Dominique ka travail ex Saint Lucien moi vle ou changer qui moun en Saint Lucia qui te mouté Dominique pour sortir pour airport là Monsieur Philippe J. Pierre, premier ministre nous, qui du bout projet airport nous, mouté Dominique pour aller, pour sortir pour airport là qui a bâti en Dominique. So nous pour demander qu'on nous en question Saint Lucia. Saint Lucia te devant tous ces pays ça. À présent nous ka trouvé qu'on nous plider. Saint-Vincent a passé nous. Ek mi ka gade akodi Dominique ka développé plus passé nous. À présent Dominique ka ni comme 3 airports. Ek nous still la ka goume ek yon an lot as pour si nous supposé bâti un terminal pour airport vieux fort because terminal là qui là pas ça fait ça était supposé faire. Ek le ba parti ka parle about fermer airport vidi partant l'autre pays ka essayer ouvert airport neuf. So Saint Lucia, on garde information sénateur Dominique ban nous bon matin. Depuis on mène GPH entre Saint Lucia, now nous a chay bateau ka yo ka book pour venir Saint Lucia, mais yo pas ka arriver. Now vous savez qui manière moi évaluer ça quand un monde qui en business et qui savent qui manière business corporate. Si ou pas book place là, si en bas il fait ou pas ça venir. Mais si ou book place là, ou ça toujours cancel. So ça nous est qui fait dimanche qui passe. Des bâtiments touristes supposant toi là, yon pas report, il pas venir pièce, il cancel. Il dit yo pas venir encore. So ça nous ka wè qui ka arrivé Saint Lucia à présent depuis deal GPH la fête. C'est bateau a book pour venir ici, mais depuis on a chance pour bypass Saint Lucia, yo ka bypass Saint Lucia parce que yo ni trop l'argent pour payer GPH pour venir opposer ces bateaux en Saint Lucia. So content monsieur Dominique Espitier. Depuis qui temps ouais pour from April, May, June, avril, juin, juillet, est-ce ça? Non. April, oui, May et June. 3 mois en l'année. Nous est presque pièce bateau pas venir Saint Lucia. So asu se limo ay ban nou, I'm vle comprendre because they let nous parler about percentage. So là nous dit il descend par 72%, 72%. Ou savez ça mean? Si yon san moun te ka vini Saint Lucia durant temps ça, only 28 vini. Ek si 70 te ka vini c'est 70, then only 30 vini durant temps ça. So nou ka we that pa di passer pour quantité moun qui te ka vini mouté y en descendant. Et là nous garder tourisme en général. Ni sa ka vini par bateau et ni sa qui ka vini à sous airport par avion. Limo a descend par 11%. So ça mean pour si yon san moun te ka vini an di yon san moun nan vini ou ni 89 89. Ça resulté en dedans that even asu Huranora Airport en vie fort yo ni pour lay off travailler. C'est hôtel là en Saint Lucia. En Chaidi yo ni travailler asu rotation. Ça min travail semaine ça, pas travail semaine prochain pour ça bay yonde moun en jour. So si ça a fait semaine ça, l'autre la ka fait l'autre semaine. Depuis qui tan nous tan touristes et ben travailler hôtel te ka sous rotation Saint Lucia. So nous ka we gouvernement partisan Philippe J. Pierre et un bas ministre tourisme Monsieur Ernest Hille, bagay pas bon Saint Lucia en tourism industry. Tant côté yo ka ale tout pa la terre yo ka travel tous les semaines. Yo ja fait combien trip Dubai? Moi vle mande yo combien touristes qui ha sort Dubai pour venir Saint Lucia. Ek pas di temps yo ka fait se bay ça pour aller tout Dubai, l'Amérique, l'Angleterre et Canada. Côté majorité touristes qui a sorti pour venir Saint Lucia, yo pas ka aller là à garder pour moun pour promouvoir Saint Lucia et pour encourager ces touristes là qui là pour venir. Pour raison ça, nous j'appelle combien ces flights là, combien ces planes et ces avions qui te ka venir Saint Lucia from l'Angleterre, from l'Amérique, nous j'appelle ces flights ça. Les ou pas ni jet plane ka vini ou savent ça mine. Puis ticket a ka vin pli haut. Les puis ticket a vin pli haut, den moun ni en option pour aller l'autre place kon. Babad, écoutez tan leader opposition n'a parlé about pas di tan nous teni about 14 avions ka volé sur l'Angleterre vini ici par semaine. Nous ja descend pour 5 par semaine et 5 là nous ka ini pour half moun ka vin Saint Lucia et ini pour Adam Calais, la Guyane, Guyane, Trinidad, c'est différents places là. So nous pas même ni un whole avion ka vin ici pour kon nous. C'est site là ka séparé. Pas dit tant ça. Babad qui teni about 20 flight from l'Angleterre ka vini yo zamouté pour 30. So, on y pour demander une question. Pour qui raison Saint Lucia en descendant laisse les autres pays à Oliwon qu'a point en mouton? Saint-Vincent qu'a fait primaire passé nous hordia. Mi Dominique qu'a fait Pogwe. Et ça nous ka we, c'est nous ni en gouvernement Excel sa yo ka bay c'est esquisse. Et nous savons dat rangement qui fait avec GPH là, il pas en faveur nous Saint Lucia, il continue à travailler contre nous, pas juste dat moins stories ka vini. Nous pas ka joindre gouvernement pas joindre des sous from ces touristes là qui ka vini à présent parce que $10 ka aller pour GPH, $1 ka aller pour Slasper et $1 et 50 cents ka aller pour solid waste. So, moi vle moun Saint Lucia chen ça en l'idée. Bon, moi kay parler about yonde les autres bay à présent. First of all, I want to acknowledge my colleague Marcella and her team, who functioned as firefighters, being present on the spur of the moment. And I have to congratulate the entire team that was on Marcella's motorcade on Monday, yesterday, for their timely intervention in saving an entire house from being engulfed in flames. I want to say this is the true spirit of Saint Lucians. That when one is in trouble, people step in and assist in the best way that they can. And I saw a lot of risk had to be taken, especially the young man who jumped inside when his bucket of water fell inside and jumped back out. But at the moment, they did what was necessary. And I have to compliment Mrs. Marcella Johnson for being proactive in the process and encouraging her team and doing her part. Now, Saint Lucians, I'm saying this to us. We must stop allowing politicians to divide us and to cause hatred and negative publicity among the people of Saint Lucia. You're free to support the political party you want. You're free to support the candidate of your choice. That is a right enshrined in the Constitution. But you see this hatred that is being spewed by politicians, we need to move away from that. We need to stand on matters of principle. We must not allow people to walk over us. But we must first remember, before I'm Labour or Flambeau, I am Saint Lucian. And I saw the true spirit of Saint Lucians. I was observant of the picture, and I saw a wristband on the hand of one of those persons in the house. But that did not deter the supporters of Mrs. Marcella Johnson from doing a good duty as a fellow Saint Lucian. And I hope that this gives us the impetus to realize that when one is in need, we don't look at politics, we do what is necessary. And that is the true spirit of the United Workers' Party. That is how we've always operated. I, for one, have been criticized by some of my people to say you do more things for labor rights than you do for us. But we are all Saint Lucians. So mwen vle di merci en pile pour tout se moun qui te avec Marcel qui aide avant fay engine nan TV pour mener di fea en kaila en bas conduite ek mwen sav dat famille supposé ka fil ko yo pli bien hodia parce que yo kawe dommage la qui te sa fait là si se moun sa a parti là pour bay ti ende a qui te nécessaire. I also want to take the opportunity to inform the people of Castries Southeast that next week Sunday is going to be our motorcade and public meeting in the cul-de-sac around the KFC area. It will be along that general area. We'll give you the precise location later this afternoon. But the motorcade begins in Forestier at about 12:30. We drive around the constituency and then we end with a public meeting or our Sunday live as we call it down in the cul-de-sac area. Now, a chay moun have a chay parole because mwen di mavle pièce lot moun vini motorcade sa passe Jean Castries Southeast. So sa nou kay fè si pièce lot moun vini nou kay separe ek nou kay moutwe ki les ki sort Castries Southeast et ki les ki sorti en différents powers because nou vle moutwe yo that Castries Southeast is ready. We are ready and we were going to make a very clear and emphatic statement about the readiness of Castries Southeast to go back to the United Workers' Party. Now, it appears to me and to many Saint Lucians that the SLP party has more money than the government of Saint Lucia. And that is a matter that should concern all of us. Because the things the Labour Party is able to do, the government is not able to do. Now, I want Saint Lucians to pause for a moment and think of what I am saying. How long have we been complaining about the shortage of supplies at the OKEU hospital and other healthcare facilities? How long has the Philip Maslin ground been abandoned by the Saint Lucia Labour Party government? the Forestier playing field. A playing field that was abandoned, not even the grass was being cut. You saw how many times I went there and I had to clean the playing field myself. And even in attempting to do that, they attempted to stop me. We have many buildings that are owned by the government of Saint Lucia that is abandoned because the basic repairs that are required to be done on these buildings have not been done. And I will be very specific, and I will send some of the pictures of the Philip Maslin ground for you to see what the situation is with a roof of a building that would take less than $300,000 to fix. But yet still, the Labour Party, the government does not have $300,000 to fix the roof of the Philip Maslin ground in Vieux-Fort and do a little beautification of the place. But you can find 400,000, in excess of 400,000, 4 weeks in a row to launch candidates. So what does that mean? Ça mean that parti Labour ni pli l'argent passe gouvernement Saint Lucia. So nous pou mande kon nou question. Côté Labour Party, ki business Labour Party ka run that you know tan l'argent kon? Tous les semaines yo ka bay moun combien $100, yo ka bay pa $1,000, yo ka paye van ki vide pour drive only one. Nou ni pou mande Saint Lucia. We need to ask ourselves the relevant questions. Where are these monies coming from? Whose money is being spent by the Saint Lucia Labour Party? And couldn't the money for 2 of these lunches give the hospital the supplies that it needs today? Couldn't it buy enough Panadol, aspirin? Couldn't it buy enough toilet paper? Couldn't it buy some bed sheets and pillows for the hospital? So Saint Lucia, ask yourself, whose money is the Labour Party spending today? Couldn't that $400,000 that was spent on the launching in Vieux-Fort, couldn't it be used to fix the Philip Maslin ground? The $400,000 that was spent in Castries Southeast, couldn't it upgrade all of the playing fields in Castries Southeast for the young men and women athletes and sports persons that we have? And here's the most telling part for me. You launch a candidate for Vieux-Fort, for Micoud South in Micoud North. So you spend another 400,000 plus on a candidate's launching, but the constituency is not good enough for the candidate to be launched in. So Micoud South pa bon assez pour launch candidate to Andidan, c'est because ou sav candidate la pan pièce support en constituency sa, c'est pour ça ou mene lot side. Now, we are talking about governance. And there is a clear distinction between political parties and the government. And so, I want to highlight a few points to you. It appears to me and to many other Saint Lucians I have heard that the government is weaponized as a political tool to the detriment of Saint Lucians. And I will repeat that. The government is weaponized as a political tool to the detriment of most Saint Lucians. And I will highlight a very telling video that I saw of what transpired. Was it at the Cultural Center? The SSDF appointment of those persons. I welcome anybody. I support every Saint Lucian who can get permanent employment. I don't care what your political affiliation is. I don't care whether you vote or you don't vote. Every Saint Lucian who can get permanent employment is a plus for that Saint Lucian. But there are so many mixed signals between politics and governance that the lines are blurred. So while you are boasting about bringing in people and putting them on permanent employment, which I support, you are taking out people who are on permanent employment and you are putting them on contract. Nurses at the hospital who have given decades of service as permanent employees are now asked to sign contracts. What kind of mixed signal is the government sending to the people of Saint Lucia? Cooks at the school, while you have committed to paying temporary teachers, which you had stopped, I welcome the idea of teachers, temporary teachers being paid, because what are they going to do for the month that they can go and find another job? And then they have to go back to school in September. So that's a good gesture to be able to pay them. But why the cooks themselves, who have been working in the school for years, why some of them was not paid for the month that they were not there to cook? Because there's no children at the school. So are they supposed to go and find a job somewhere else? And I can give you real life examples, because some of the persons affected, you know who they are. Because they are now being told if their payment was missed, they have to wait until the end of October to be paid. Really? So they don't have bills to pay during that time? They don't have their family to feed? This Labour Party government is just playing politics with the governance of this country. And I'm saying to all of us as Saint Lucians, this is a path to dictatorship. We may not want to pay attention to it. We may not want to think that our democracy is being threatened, but I'm saying to all Saint Lucians, open your eyes. Pay attention to what is happening. The slide is happening, but it's happening gradually. One of these days, when we will wake up, we will realize that we are at the bottom of the precipice, if we are still alive. And so, I am saying to us as a people, politicians come and politicians go. Nobody is in politics forever. If we don't live by choice, life will catch up with us when our number is called. So we will not be there forever. But the institutions that we set up, the Constitution of Saint Lucia, which governs how we should govern, is being breached by this present administration on a daily basis. We have never had it so bad in Saint Lucia. No other prime minister in the history of this country has presided over a government that is so blatantly disrespecting and disregarding the basic principles of governance, as has Philip J. Pierre. Moi vle di sa anko. La pa ni pièce gouvernement Saint Lucia qui ja oppowe autant mauvais kon gouvernement Philippe J. Pierre. Lè vini pour separation between political party and between government. And I will give you examples. Mwen kay ba ou exemple. Lè nou gade sa ki fet just semaine passé. Lè yon moun adan an fonction gouvernement. Sa dou bout ek di moun kote pou vote bol étoile la ek ki moun pou yo pa vote bay. Pour yon bagay qui te ka fait en bas paiement l'argent gouvernement Saint Lucia. Et pièce ministre qui te assise là, pas bay en apologie, et ben pas dit ça pas. Well, ban di yo, ma vle yo vin moutwe deme ek di, moko tan pièson bay en apologie pour ça. Moko tan pièson di, statement ça qui fait là pate en place. Et ça pate place là pour statement là te fait là. Moi quoi premier ministre là te là, ministre qui responsable pour SSDF te là. So si yo pas di rien, ça min yo endosse ça qui dit a, et peut-être c'est yo qui allow statement là pour fait. Now de les moun la yo ka parler ou pas conduite over ça yo dit, mais si yo dit en bail qui pas en place, ou kon premier ministre là supposé sortir et dit non, ça pas en place. How can a function of government be used as a weapon for politics? Now, our democracy is under threat by this SLP. And let me give you some examples. Election date is a political football whenever Labour Party is in office. You are elected for 5 years. If you are not performing, the people of the country can apply enough pressure for you to be removed. And we saw it happen in 1981-82. The Labour Party did not last their 5 years because of the internal turmoil. We saw in 2001, when the alliance broke up, the then Prime Minister Kenny Anthony decided they're not ready, let me call a snap election on them. In 2006, they went over the time. The commitment given to World Cup cricket for 2007, that election had to be held at least 6 months before the cricket. The cricket was in about March, April. What happened? They went until the 11th of December. Commitments, playing games with the date of elections. In 2016, snap election was called 6 months before, hoping that the opposition was not ready. Now, in 2025, we are begging you to call the election because the opposition is more ready than the government. We were ready long before you. We presented our 17 candidates long before you. While you are still waiting and trying to select candidates, we had presented 17 candidates to Saint Lucia. In fact, some of the candidates who didn't make our slate were the ones you had to resort. And they only came to you after they did not make our list. Saint Lucia, this is not politics I'm talking here. This is democracy. And this is democracy where games are being played. So, I heard the Prime Minister saying he wants to declare his innings before it comes to an end. You know, there are teams when you play cricket, you have 11 batsmen. If you bat well, or the team may declare at any point that they won. I want you to declare your innings this year so that you can lose the match. That is what you have to do. Declare the innings so you will lose. Because this game that is being played, you are in Dominica, you said the bell can ring soon. You came back to Saint Lucia, you said you have until November 2026. Some of your people are saying election is soon. Games are being played with the date of elections. But I want to go to the Constitution today. And I want to highlight why I have concerns about what is happening to us and why it is happening to us. Now, on page 2 of the Constitution, it's this section, and I'll give you the title of the section, some of the titles. Because protection of fundamental rights and freedoms. Fundamental rights and freedom. Protection of right to life. Protection of right to personal liberty. Protection from slavery and forced labor. Protection from inhumane treatment. Protection from deprivation of property. Protection from arbitrary search or entry. Now let me pause on this one. The powers that was given to the police under the Special Enforcement Act, have things settled sufficiently where have you withdrawn these powers? Or can police continue to do based on the law that was passed? Provision to secure protection of law, protection of freedom of conscience, protection of freedom of expression, protection of freedom of assembly and association, protection of freedom of movement, protection from discrimination on the grounds of race, etc. Why are some of us being discriminated against? And here's the hypocrisy of the Saint Lucia Labour Party. And Saint Lucia, I'm speaking to us because this is our country. This country does not belong to the Saint Lucia Labour Party. You are proud to launch an Indian candidate in Mikud South, in Mikud North for Mikud South. But this is the same political party who said Guy Joseph should be put on a boat and shipped back to India. Double standards of hypocrisy by a set of racist individuals who, when they cannot beat you, when they cannot get the better of you, they resort to the lowest level of political degradation to attack you. So you want to attack Alan on his complexion. But the same Richard Frederick said he would take a pen and pen Kenny Anthony black. Why? Why? But today, all of you in the same box. Y'all in the same bag. So what y'all said yesterday didn't matter. Men of no integrity. Men who have no ethical standards. Because you think you can fool all the people of Saint Lucia all the time. But you cannot fool everybody in Saint Lucia. When it's convenient, people are not good. And when it's convenient, they are good. But we will come to that in a different forum. Under this, and I want to remind Saint Lucians, my rights as a Saint Lucian to practice my religion unencumbered by political decisions was trampled upon by the Saint Lucia Labour Party when they put nomination in 2016 on a Saturday, which infringed on my right under the Constitution to practice my religion without fear or without being intimidated or without my rights. Never before in the history of Saint Lucia had nomination happened on a Saturday. But the Labour Party, in their desperation to get rid of me, they knew that I would not go and get nominated on a Saturday because I stand by what I believe. There are principles by which we live. And so I refused to go and get nominated on a Saturday. And even when I asked for an accommodation for it to be done after sunset, they said no accommodation. I want Saint Lucia to remember this is the same Labour Party who is now going to these same churches and handing checks to them. And I welcome the support the churches get, but it's not about the money. It's about infringing on the rights of those individuals. So, we're talking about our constitution and we're talking about governance. I want to highlight a couple other things. In this constitution, on page 84, I want to take you there because Saint Lucia, we don't just come and blow hot air. What we have there is Integrity Commission under miscellaneous. Section 118 on page 84 of the Constitution says, there shall be an Integrity Commission for Saint Lucia, hereinafter in this section referred to as the Commission, which shall consist of a chairman and not less than 2 and not more than 4 other members, who shall be appointed by the Governor General, acting in accordance with the advice of the Prime Minister. And it says, provided that the Prime Minister shall consult with the leader of the opposition before tendering any advice to the Governor General for the purpose of this subsection. Now, where am I going with this? We're talking about governance this morning. So the Constitution of Saint Lucia requires that there be an Integrity Commission in place at all times. From our information, we went more than a year without an Integrity Commission or a chairman of an Integrity Commission. Mr. Prime Minister, why did we go for that extended period without an Integrity Commission? Now I will go to page 86. Under the subsection 119. And Saint Lucia, I want you to pay very careful attention to what I am saying. The Integrity Commission shall obtain declarations in writing from time to time of the assets, liabilities, and income from senators and members of the House, including ministers and parliamentary secretaries, and from the holders of such other offices as Parliament may prescribe. So, Esutan Samuel read la from Constitution. Integrity Commission, il dit c'est Premier ministre qui a voé ses noms by gouverneur général. Après, il fait leader opposition na sav, ça c'est ses noms qui a voé. Because celle ça dit c'est consult. Il pas dit leader opposition na ni pour approve. Mais il dit nous à sous page 86, 86, Integrity Commission nan ni pour joindre from se moun qui en Sénat là, qui l'argent yo ka doué, qui l'argent yo ni, qui propriétaire qui a sous nom yo, ou supposé faire une déclaration pour tout ça ou ni les ou trouver comme un sénateur et bien un ministre en gouvernement. Bon, je vais parler pour comment. Les moi te just en tout, moi te pour déclarer tout ça moi ni. Les moi marié. Yo aussi voé papier pour madame moi déclarer aussi, même si madame moi pas te ka travail by gouvernement, il te still ni pour déclarer qui ça ni, qui ça qui a sous nom, qui l'argent ni à banque là. Now, it pas just l'argent na banque, il dit liabilities, ça ou ka doué. Bon, moi vle demander, because personne poko répondre question ça. There is a letter circulating on the internet that a particular senator had liabilities of over $100,000. The question is, based on the Integrity Commission and what the Constitution of Saint Lucia requires, was that declaration made? And if that declaration was not made, Mr. Prime Minister, is that the reason why you facilitated not having an integrity commission for a period of time to allow certain things to pass undercover? You see, if you choose to attack Guy Joseph, and you choose to say all kinds of things about me, but you've not been able to come up with one shred of evidence, I don't owe people that I don't pay. I don't go and take loans that I cannot afford. I always declared everything I had to Integrity Commission. And for that matter, I believe the laws of Integrity Commission should even be strengthened. That from the time you apply to be a candidate, you should declare everything that you have. So when you are evaluated, they know what you had before you came in and what you have when you're coming out. So, governance is on the fret. Is the Prime Minister a facilitator of what is happening there when the Prime Minister swore on the Bible to uphold the Constitution of Saint Lucia? And I can tell you that we all who come into government, we give our commitment to conscientiously uphold and stand by the sovereignty and integrity of what the Constitution requires of us. So, Saint Lucia, I want you to ask yourself, how is that possible? That we can have senators in the parliament, and if that is not so, then there is a need for clarification. Is that a bogus letter? Y'all had Pajoa letters circulating everywhere about me. Look the real letter now. We have not heard a single response from the Saint Lucia Labour Party, from the government of Saint Lucia. And here's the further breach of good governance. How can somebody who is not a cabinet member, not a parliamentary secretary, not a member of the government, be at a cabinet briefing to present or to make remarks when cabinet briefing is designed for ministers of government to report on the performance of the ministries or to enlighten the people of Saint Lucia on what the government is doing? How can the government entity, NTN, GIS, how can they be used for this purpose? Where is the integrity in the governance of this country? Where are the persons who are in charge of this country? So, no demarcation between the politics and the executive of government. And let me explain further. I saw poles and lights for the field in Forestier. I welcome that. But I know there's still a sitting MP, and I didn't hear the MP say anything about that, but I heard a candidate and senator talking about, while people are talking, they are working. So I want to know whether these things were purchased with money from the consolidated fund. Now I'm coming to the consolidated fund, because I want Saint Lucians to understand. All of us can talk, but there are rules that govern what we do in and out of government. Because when you see people coming and they're telling you, when people don't abide by the rules before they are in government, you think is when they are in government they will abide by the rules? So, page 56 of the Constitution. Because I don't want y'all to say, Guy came here and was saying stories. Page 56 of the Constitution, number 77. It says, all revenues and other monies raised or received by Saint Lucia, not being revenues or other monies that are payable by or under the law for the time being, and that's in bracket what I'm reading there, in force in Saint Lucia into some other fund established for a specific purpose, shall be paid into and from a consolidated fund. So let me read the part without the bracket. All revenues or monies raised or received by Saint Lucia shall be paid into and from a consolidated fund. Now, Saint Lucia, I want to remind you, when the United Workers' Party was in government between 2006 and 2011, and the Taiwanese was implementing the community projects, there was a big outcry by the Saint Lucia Labour Party about this. They said all monies should go into the consolidated fund. They did it. When we came in 2016, we abide by it. I want to ask today, the 100 million from Galaxy for the roadworks, is it in the consolidated fund? The money for the purchasing of the lights, is it in the consolidated fund? Where is it reflected in the budget? Because I want you to understand, and you know, it's amazing. This morning I passed. If you see the state of the surface of the field, you can't do anything on the field but you put in lights. Election gimmicks. But, so, if the money is to be paid out of the consolidated fund, it must be reflected in the estimates of revenue and expenditure. Now, section 79. Now, I wish I could have gone through greater detail, but because of time, no money shall be withdrawn from the consolidated fund except to meet the expenditure that is charged upon the fund by the Constitution or by the law enacted by Parliament. So the government cannot go and spend money that is not out of the consolidated fund. Now they will try and come and explain and tell you. You see, the Americans are going through a government shutdown because the budget has not been passed. Our budget, our Constitution makes provision for that. That you have 4 months after a particular period of time where if you expend money from the consolidated fund, if the budget is delayed or something, that you have to table it and take it to Parliament. But you see, what I'm seeing here is an area of governance that is under threat, where it appears that the government is spending money, or the government has given state resources to other institutions to spend on behalf of the government of Saint Lucia. So I want to know the $100 million for the roadworks, for infrastructure, to be more precise, from Galaxy. Is that money with Galaxy, or is that money with the consolidated fund? Because that is what the Constitution requires. That is the law enacted by the Labour Party themselves when they said all the Taiwanese funds should go into the consolidated fund. So it says to meet expenditure that is charged upon the fund by the Constitution or by the law enacted by Parliament, where the issue of those monies has been authorized by an appropriation law or by a law made under Section 80. So Section 80 of the Constitution gives the latitude for the 4 months that I spoke about. So I'm not going to go into detail. But here's the minister under Section 79. The minister shall be responsible for finance, shall cause to be paid and laid before the House before or no later than 30 days after the commitment for each financial year's estimates of the revenue and expenditure for Saint Lucia for that financial year. So if you did not show it in your budget, where is it being spent? Are you in breach of the Finance Administration Act? Are you in breach of the appropriation bill that was passed by Parliament? You see, Saint Lucia, I want you to understand, the Constitution is not just a piece of paper. The Constitution is what governs the behavior of politicians, and especially those who have the tendency to be unscrupulous. The Constitution is to guide what we do. So, we have seen so many breaches, especially on the racism issue. Now, we spoke about the delayed implementation of the Integrity Commission And we saw what happened at the cultural center. We see the road works happening. Do we know who we see who the contractor is? Do we know the cost of the road? Where is it reflected in the budget? Where is it reflected in the bill that went to the parliament? How is it being paid? Will it be paid out of the consolidated fund? And I want to say to the chief engineer, you are the custodian of the road network in Saint Lucia. These are constitutional positions. The staff orders and everything tells us who is responsible for what. So we need to understand politicians may give directives, but the directives that are given must be in keeping with the laws of the land and what governs governance. Because governance is being governed by the Constitution. And so in closing, moi vle di tout Saint Lucien. A nou ouvezye nou, a nou litizing pli sa ki ka fet, ek nou kaywe tout kote gouvernement sa, ja depawe kont se prinsip la ek se loi ki ka gouverne manière un pays supposé, manière supposé manager affaire un pays. All of us have that responsibility. It is our job to protect the integrity of government, the Constitution, and when politicians go outside of the Constitution, we have to hold them accountable. Moi vle di tout Saint Lucien, an nou fè pa nou, an pa kite politician kwenen nou, an ouvezye nou, an gade sa ki ka fet, an gade kote gouvernement kan de koz bay pou jwen koy sewe, paske la paten Integrity Commission, ek Integrity Commission na di sa ou si pose fe, ek loi Integrity Commission na di, si ou fe pièce declaration ki fo, yo suppose mene ou l'audience et ou sa touve condamné $50,000. So nous suppose examiner est-ce moun nan déclaré tout ça yo te suppose déclarer et si yo pas déclaré pour qui sa Integrity Commission nan ki la pa ka fait travail li because pour abouezan si let sa ka circulate Integrity Commission na te suppose zakouye se moun nan ki responsable la ek di ki manière la bay déclaration nous pate we déclaration sa asou sa et ben si te la est jot gade si moun nan te chen sa ite suppose chen ek sa pa jas pou yon sénateur ou sa l'ani ministre en gouvernement nous jawe ki zani combien millions dollars bay en 4 l'année ek yo di se koyote ka travail so account yo en banque la supposé moutoué combien l'argent yo te accumulé because le moi te ka fait Integrity Commission moi ten pour joindre un let from banque la pour présenter by Integrity Commission pour montrer combien l'argent mani a sous chaque account mani a banque là et tous les l'année moi ten pour faire so yo te ka wè pa ki autant si moi te gen short term moi pour déclarer si moi gen machine so ki manière se moun sa accumuler toutes ces bail ça en 4 l'année et personne pas répondre question so we Saint Lucia must hold this government accountable. And you will have much more about this when you join us at our Sunday meeting and remember our motorcade on Sunday in Castries Southeast starting from Forestier at 12:30. Thank you and God bless.